back to the channel. Thank you for joining me again as we move along and read more case studies from the book Criminal Law Case Digest by Attorney Deogenes Agellon. So we have read cases regarding crimes or offenses against the physical well-being of victims. So now I wanted to move along and talk about the other different crimes that actually involves fraud in transactions, like fraudulent transactions. What is the crime committed? So in the Philippines, estafa is actually very rampant. Every day, there's somebody committing fraud or estafa against another person or or against a company, against a group of people, and that is what we will be reading today. So I've actually moved to chapter 4. We're skipping chapter 3, but in order to read more from the book, it is available for purchase online, or you can send me an email to this email address and I will respond promptly. So for chapter 4, my dad titled it Feather by Feather, the Goose is Plucked. And he quoted Sir Walter Scott in his book Marmion. And the quote reads, "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first practice to deceive." Estafa is also a kind of deception against another human being, against a corporation, and it is actually described as a criminal offense in the revised penal code. Another word for estafa is swindling. So the people committing the crime of estafa in the Philippines are called estafador, or for a guy, or estafadora for a girl. Swindlers is what we call them, most popularly in a different country maybe. But in any case, they commit fraud. So there are 3 elements of estafa. The first is deceit or abuse of trust. The accused must have employed deceitful tactics or abused a position of trust to commit the act. Number 2, damage to the victim. The deceit or abuse must have resulted in actual damage, typically financial, to the victim. And number 3, causal relationship. There must be a direct link between the deceitful act and the resulting damage. So the damage must be the result of the actual deceitful act against another. The facts. Remedios, Leticia, and Aurora, acting in concert, deceived Rowell, Marlon, Raphael, Edwin, and J-Lord into believing that they had the authority, capability, and with the right connections to send them abroad for employment, and that there were available jobs for them in Malaysia to which they would be hired. By reason and on the strength of such assurances, the said victims, Rowell, Marlon, Raphael, Edwin, and J-Lord, parted with their money, and the trio, Remedios, Leticia, and Aurora, collected from them various amounts, allegedly to pay for the processing and placement fees, although they have no license nor authority to so recruit or offer job placements abroad. These representations of the trio proved false. Question: what is the crime, or what are the crimes committed by Remedios, Leticia, and Aurora? You have 4 choices. A, estafa through falsification of official document. B, 3 counts of estafa and 3 counts of illegal recruitment. C, illegal recruitment on a large scale. D. Illegal recruitment on a large scale and 3 counts of estafa. So my dad provided the dialectics, which means we will be analyzing the details of the case. Recruitment and placement refers to any act of canvassing, enlisting, contracting, transporting, utilizing, hiring, or procuring workers, and includes referrals, contract services, promising or advertising for employment locally or abroad, whether for profit or not, provided that any person or entity which in any manner offers or promises for a fee employment to 2 or more persons shall be deemed engaged in recruitment and placement. To prove illegal recruitment, only 2 elements need to be shown. First, the offender undertakes either any activity within the aforesaid meaning of recruitment and placement, defined under Article 13b, or any of the prohibited practices enumerated under Article 34 of the Labor Code. And 2, he has no valid license or authority required by law to enable 1 to lawfully engage in recruitment and placement of workers. We have a footnote here from Abaca versus Court of Appeals and People versus Juego from the Supreme Court of the Philippines ruling. The law defines a license as a document issued by the Department of Labor and Employment, or DOLE, authorizing a person or entity to operate a private employment agency, while an authority is a document issued by the DOL authorizing a person or association to engage in recruitment and placement activities as a private recruitment entity. There is a large-scale illegal recruitment if it is committed against 3 or more individuals or as a group. Its elements, therefore, are the 2 above mentioned, which are undertaking any activity of recruitment and placement, plus the fact that it is committed against 3 or more people. Large-scale illegal recruitment involves economic sabotage and is penalized with life imprisonment and a fine of 100,000 pesos. So that would be about 25,000 Canadian dollars. The elements of estafa in general are 1, that the accused defrauded another, A, by abuse of confidence, or B, by means of deceit, and number 2, that damage or prejudice capable of pecuniary estimation is caused to the offended party or third person. These elements are present from the facts given. In this case, the offenders deceived the complainants into believing that they had the authority and capability to send them abroad for employment, that there were available jobs for them in Malaysia for which they would be hired, and that by reason or on the strength of assurance from the 3 women, the complainants parted with their money in payment of the various processing and placement fees. As all these representations made by Remedios, Leticia, and Aurora, acting in concert or agreement together, proved false, Paragraph 2A of Article 315 of the Revised Penal Code is thus applicable. The said acts of the three women, consisting of their promise of employment to certain persons and of transporting them abroad, fall squarely within the ambit of recruitment and placement as defined by law. Having recruited at least three persons, giving them the impression of their ability to send workers abroad, assuring them of their employment in Malaysia, and collecting various amounts of alleged processing and placement fees without licensing nor authority to so recruit or offer job placements abroad, therefore constitute a large-scale illegal recruitment. So remember, the recruitment should be on three or more people. If it's two or one, it's not a large scale recruitment. So what is your answer? If you are presented with this case and if you have to look at the facts and you see all the details in the case, what would be your answer? The answer is D, illegal recruitment on a large scale and 3 counts of estafa. And we will be explaining that with my dad's dialectics. So we had mentioned that there are 3 legal elements of estafa. One is deceit or fraud committed by the accused, in this case, 3 women. Damage or prejudice, in this case, 5 gentlemen, and they have suffered actual damage as a result of the deceit. And this is more financial damage and emotional damage. So this could involve, like we said, financial loss, loss of property, or other forms of harm caused by the fraudulent act. There's a causal link, which means the damage was done because the damage resulted in from the fraudulent act. So large-scale estafa is defined as an aggravated form of estafa when certain factors are present, which are 1. Multiple victims. The crime involves defrauding several people, 3 or more, thereby impacting a broader section of society. Number 2, there's a significant amount of money involved. When the amount of money or property involved is considerable, the crime is treated more seriously under the law. And in large-scale estafa cases, the penalties may be more severe, including higher fines and longer prison sentences as provided by law. In this case, the sentence given was a fine of 100,000 pesos, equivalent to 25,000 Canadian dollars, and life imprisonment. Large-scale estafa sometimes is referred to as syndicated estafa in the Philippines. It is an elevated form of the crime of estafa, characterized by the involvement of a syndicate or by being committed in a large scale by more than 3 people. A syndicate refers to a group of 3 or more persons formed with the intention of committing estafa or defrauding another person or persons, while a large scale involves defrauding of victims of millions of pesos. This type of estafa is punished more severely compared to the regular estafa, which could just be a small fine or returning the money or a few months imprisonment or public service due to the grave prejudice it causes to the victims. So facing a large-scale estafa case can be complex and a very strenuous process given the gravity of the accusation and the severe penalties involved. When you are accused of estafa, you should know your legal rights, so you should speak with a lawyer. So a lot of Filipinos actually fall victim to large-scale estafa involving illegal recruitment. The reason being, some Filipinos are not informed correctly or well informed, and a lot of times they just, believe the person who is like talking to them because of desperation. Sometimes they want to go abroad and make more money and help family. So it's usually the need that makes Filipinos like really, push to go abroad, like without going through the due process, right? So actually, in order to avoid um, being a victim to illegal recruiters, that's what we call them, or swindlers, here are the key regulations and requirements. Number one, use of licensed recruitment agencies. The Philippine law mandates that employers seeking to hire Filipino workers for overseas employment must do so through licensed recruitment agencies. Number two, no direct hiring. Direct hiring of Filipino workers for overseas employment is prohibited. So, if I want to hire a person to work for me here in Canada, I need to go through an actual licensed recruitment agency. I cannot just take them here and put them in my employ, send them money, come here, and then work. There are also very strict regulations in Canada and in the US before you can bring somebody under your employ. So I highly suggest that we need to follow all of the legalities that are required by the country abroad and by the Philippine government. Number three, POEA licensing. They ensure that the recruitment agency is licensed and will always renew their license like in a timely manner. So POEA in the Philippines is the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration. And then we also have agency requirements. Agency requirements in the Philippines in order to send people abroad legally must have Filipino ownership. There's a backstory to that. That's why we require that the recruitment agency is owned by Filipinos. And there's a minimum capital for a recruitment agency, a paid up capital of 5 million pesos. So how much would that be it will be roughly 1 million Canadian dollars or 900,000 US dollars. That is the required 100, 5 million. I'm just calculating here. Yeah. So we need 1,000 Canadian dollars. That is just the conversion from pesos. Okay. And then the recruitment agency must have financial stability. They must maintain a balance in a local bank in the Philippines and have escrow agreements with the POEA. And then we also have the requirement of job order and documentation. We need to submit, like as a recruitment agency which is 100% Filipino owned, must submit a job order. Any company seeking to hire Filipino employees must submit a job order and supporting documentation to the local MWO office with jurisdiction over the employment country or location. So it also involves jurisdiction where of the recruitment agency under jurisdiction of where they're sending the person for employment. So if you're curious, when I mentioned what MWO is, it is the Migrant Workers Office in the Philippines. So POEA approval, the job order and supporting documents must first be approved by the POEA. To avoid illegal recruitment, always be careful of unverified agencies. Do not deal with any person who is not an authorized representative of an actual licensed recruitment agency in the Philippines. And then avoid paying excessive fees. Do not pay more than the allowed placement fee. And you can always search how much a placement fee is, because when like with the three women who recruited the five guys, I think the five guys were just not like really doing their own research, or they don't have the means to find the proper information, or they were just so excited with how the three women had convinced them, or kind of like flavored everything about being employed overseas, benefits, like how fast they can get a job overseas. So just make sure you're very careful with who you're dealing with. Check the agency's license. So in this case of the three women, they actually just, like they concurred together and to deceive the five guys, Rohel, Marlon, Raphael, Edwin, and J. Lord, into believing that they had the authority and the right connections. So having authority and the right connections verbally telling you is not enough. You need to ask for their valid license issued by the POEA, and you need to check that the person named on the certificate or the license are the actual three people you are talking to. So make sure you ask for their ID. In the Philippines, ID can be made, can be created, illegally without any problems at all. And so it is really hard to, protect yourself if you're really desperate. I won't use the word desperate, if you really wanna pursue that dream of working abroad. So, the best thing you should do is really go to the POEA office, get a list of the legal recruitment agencies, and just go to the office. It will take a long time, probably. It might not be within the timeline you want, but this will also ensure that you're not going to lose any of your hard earned money that you saved up just so you can go and work abroad. Thank you so much for joining me again in another case study, this time on large scale estafa. And watch out for the list that I am creating for you for the essential documents that are required by the POEA in order to work abroad. Please like and subscribe.